We're so excited to have you here today. And whether you're joining from a current Starborn Academy class or you're one of our amazing alumni or we've run events with you, we just want to thank you so much for being part of this special event with Aaron here today. I think most of you know me, but my name is Emily. I'm going to be kind of the moderator today and going through Aaron's journey to space with him. This session is definitely something that I've been looking forward to for a long time because Aaron is an incredibly inspiring guest. And I'll let you know a little bit about him, and then I will let him introduce himself and take it away. So Aaron is an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, so an avid business person. He is also an explorer and a spaceflight researcher. He has founded 5 successful technology companies, including his current company, Cloud Storage Security, and he holds 6 patents for tools and technologies used in the tech world today. As an explorer, he's been to the stern of the Titanic, traveled down to the Mariana Trench, becoming only the 24th human to reach Challenger Deep, and has twice attempted to climb Mount Everest. So lots of things we can ask questions about there, so feel free to drop those in the chat. He has also founded a nonprofit called Exploring Our Deep World, which focuses on education, conservation, scientific research, and exploring the deep waters of our planet. And of course, what we're here primarily to talk about today, Aaron recently became the 717th human in history to reach space, flying on Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket as part of the New Shepard 36 crewed mission, working with Utah State University and our company, Uplift Aerospace. He also, while he was in space, helped to study how the human body adapts to spaceflight. So things like balance and motion sickness, what happens when you go from gravity to weightlessness and then back again. As some of you know, if you've done our VR program, we talk a lot about living in microgravity and the effects of that. And earlier in his life, Aaron also served in the U.S. Army during the first Gulf War, and which has shaped his commitment to service and exploration. So today he is here to share what it is like to leave Earth's surface behind, to experience weightlessness, and to look back at our planet from space. So over the next hour, you're going to hear Aaron's story, how he went from being a kid with big dreams, just like you guys, to becoming someone who has actually traveled beyond the Kármán line, which is the boundary into space. You'll hear about the preparation, so what it took to get to space, the launch, the mission itself, and the moments that actually changed the way he sees our world. So today, really importantly, I want you guys to keep in mind that this session is for you. It's about helping you imagine the future of space exploration, and what that could look like during your lifetime, and how you can, if you would like, play a role in it, whether as engineers, scientists, artists, storytellers, leaders, business people, or explorers yourselves like Aaron. So after our chat, we'll open up the floor for your questions. Please feel free to drop them in the chat. So if something sparks your curiosity or inspires you, just hang on to it, write it in the chat, and you can get ready to ask Aaron directly. So I know that's a long intro, but we will get started. And Aaron, thank you so much for being with us here today. To kick things off, I think it would be really cool to kind of go back to the beginnings a little bit, or at least sort of what sparked this idea for why you first wanted to go to space. What was the kind of initial spark that kicked off your exploring the unknown in this world?
Well, I think, well, thank you for having me and glad to meet everybody virtually. But I mean, listen, we all grew up in kind of an age of Star Trek where the opening scene of Star Trek is a very classic that for me is so important. It's this idea of to boldly go where no one has gone before, right? I find that very exciting and very compelling. And I didn't necessarily, we all wanted to go to space when we were young, seeing the Challenger astronauts or the space shuttle or wherever it was. But I wasn't particularly tied to space. It wasn't until later in my life that I kind of really got that inkling for exploration, for going and like they said in Star Trek, to boldly go where no one's gone before. And for me, it was all about doing things that humans hadn't done before and reaching out to something new and exciting. And so that's where I started that passion. I did software engineering. I mean, I grew up in upstate New York, lived on a farm. I grew up on a farm, very small community. So you really can come from nowhere, and I wanted to get out of there and go do something amazing. And so I joined the military, did that, got money for school, went to a state school, and then started my life as a software engineer. Software is a very cool, exciting time for it the past 25 years, and I think the next 50 years will be. Just then after I kind of retired from it, I was like, what am I going to do now? What's my passion? And I found this idea of exploration. And one of my first exploration trips was down to the Titanic on the same craft that you saw Ocean Gate. And so, and once I started with the exploration, I was like, I just had this desire to see so much stuff, whether it's the bottom of the ocean, whether it's space. And so I signed up, and didn't know when it was going to happen or how it was going to happen, but I knew the idea of being in the room when, humanity is here. We're really at a cusp of where people can start to go and explore outside of this world. To be a part of that was really exciting. And I said, I want to be there. And so did everything I could to get on board, and was fortunate to be selected and chosen to go on one of the New Shepard flights. So it's living my dream.
Amazing. And you might know, you might be able to see, I'm playing a video of your trip down to the Mariana Trench. You've had a really diverse career, and I think thinking about, as an explorer, you've gone to the Titanic, you've gone down into the Mariana Trench. I think it's a little bit it would be really interesting to know if there's any twists or turns or surprises that you've encountered along the way as an explorer. Did you always know that space was the final frontier? Were you a little bit surprised, initially when you were
Well,
accepted?
It,
Walk
it,
us through
it
that a little
was
bit.
interesting because when I first started it, one of my evolutions is I did a bit of mountain climbing, and actually, it was interesting because I was doing the seven summits, which is the tallest summit of each of the seven continents. And honestly, I got to Everest and I went once and I failed at it. I just got to a certain elevation, I couldn't do it. And then I tried again and failed again. And so it was, it was a learning experience. It's really good to fail sometimes, to really not accomplish something, because it makes you it teaches you something about yourself. If just succeeding doesn't give you as much of an experience like failing at something. And when I walked away from that, I said, you know what? I'm going to come back and I'm going to figure out how to do things, but I'm going to do them more with what I call a purpose. So some of these adventures or exploration, I want to do with a purpose, which is, whether it's science, whether it's research, whether it's going places humans haven't been before. But for me, it was all about, I want to do something where, I could actually push forward human evolution and really do something that improved and left more knowledge or took humans another step. And listen, at the end of the day, I'm not Neil Armstrong, right? I flew on a Blue Origin flight, but I believe that what I am is part of this evolution of, the first person that went out to, and explored the western half of the US was Lewis and Clark, right? But then after Lewis and Clark, there's the second wave of people that goes out. And then there's a third wave, and there's different people that work in those different waves. And I believe I'm kind of that second wave where, in terms of space, it was all about paving the way for the next generation, right? I'm probably not gonna be I'm probably not young enough to be standing on the moon one day, right? But I believe the people on this call are the people that are going to have the opportunity to stand on the moon one day, right? And that these students and these young minds, the science is going to get us there, and these people will have the opportunity. I'm just glad I was a little part of being the first baby steps to leave the earth, right? That's what was exciting for me. The rocket ride is absolutely awesome, but that's not what it's about. It's about paving the road for the people that are coming behind us, and making making those trails, they're going to make it a little easier. Every time we shoot a rocket into space, it makes the next one that much easier. So I'm just so glad I could be part of one of those rockets.
Yeah, I think a lot of students often ask us and often wonder what it takes to be an astronaut. I think we know there's a lot of steps that are involved, a spirit for exploration. Can you talk about a little bit about sort of the mindset shifts or the sort of paradigm that you had to embody in your decision making and your mindset to make that happen with all of the steps along the way? It was a long journey, lots of things had to happen to get you there. Can you talk
Yeah,
a little bit about the steps and decisions?
yeah, I mean, there is so many different paths you can take to be involved in it. And whether you're going to actually be an astronaut on a flight or whether you're going to be, because for me, the astronauts on the flight are actually secondary. It's the people that are building and designing the rockets that are the real pioneers, right? Because they're the ones, all I had to do was sit there and not break anything, don't touch anything, right? Versus the people that were designing it, they're the ones that are really the geniuses. They're the ones that enabled and made it happen. So those are the people I consider the heroes, is the ones that designed an engine and designed a system to keep it cool. So, I encourage you to say, be a part of that system, right? And look, you go back to when I was growing up, astronauts were test pilots, right? Because they flew the aircraft. Today, astronauts are scientists, right? They're people that are going to do experiments, right? Because humans don't fly rockets anymore. Rockets are flown with computers, right? It's the engineers that are flying it, but they're flying it, because they're designing it to fly. So I mean, we all see, and I think some of the kids here grew up with it, but for me to see a rocket land on a ship in the middle of the ocean is mind blowing. How the engineers pull that off. They're the real heroes. So I encourage you to be part of the engineers, and that's software engineers, that's mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. There's so many different ways you could be part of this. And that's what's exciting for me, is that this new generation has an opportunity to really step up and to be part of building something to take us beyond this world.
Great advice. We've talked a lot in our classes with these students about the different career pathways that are available. And I think what is often really surprising to people and really exciting is that spaceflight and being involved in the space industry is so much more accessible than it used to be. And people really, I think, because of this commercial space age, they really don't know what it takes to be a commercial astronaut or even what that means necessarily. Can you talk a little bit about what the commercial astronaut training process looks like and what kind of simulations or safety drills that you got to experience as part of this mission?
Yeah, and again, as a commercial astronaut, it's very different than being kind of one of the astronauts that are for NASA or one of those. Those are lifelong programs. We went through a fairly brief kind of program of training, right? You get there a week beforehand, and you're going over safety protocols, and you're going over, how it works and what do you do in this scenario. But so as a commercial astronaut, it's actually a fairly light lift, right? You have to know, what's going to happen to the rocket at different stages. How do you react to it? How do you move around in zero G's or microgravity? But it's really the non-commercial astronauts. They're the scientists. They're the ones that are going up. And I was lucky enough that I was able to take part in an experiment through the State University of Utah, State University of Utah. We did an experiment there, right? But the real astronauts, the ones that have trained for their lives for this, they're up there doing, just that's what they do on the ISS. That's what they do on the space station, is they spend their days doing experiments and planning and learning and figuring out how do we do this. So that's where, if you really want to be an astronaut, find whether it's biology, whether it's chemistry, find it and become world class at that. and that will feed into being an astronaut. So, it's not about being a test pilot anymore. It's more about being, if you want to be a biologist or a chemist or one of those, that's the part that you go to space. The part that that you're going to help build a rocket and really be part of that. Where I consider the real heroes is that piece. That's where you be an engineer, right? Figure out how to design these things. Figure out how to come up with new materials that can withstand things, right? Because you look at a Blue Origin rocket, and there are pieces of it that make it revolutionary, right? Things like they understand how to maintain the fuel at the right temperature, right? So they understand cryo and they understand how fuels interact very well. And so they've studied this, and that's what makes, because rocket science is a well-known technology. It's just that you then come up with new techniques that extend it, that allow you to become even more cutting edge. And I'll even throw out there software engineering is such a critical piece of it because, being able to do things, in real time and so software engineering is the next other big piece of what allows us to do these amazing things like leaving our planet and and going and stepping on a different planet.
Yeah.
I think Josh has a little comment to jump in on here.
Yeah, I was just thinking of what you're saying right now, Aaron, and we first connected around the research. So Uplift Aerospace, we put together this research program with Utah State University, and I was thinking around your comment, Aaron, of um, the idea of being sort of the second wave pushing the boundaries of exploration into space. And I just want to echo your comments there because before the research that we did with you on your space flight would have been almost out of reach. For most research institutions, unless they had a grant, and there's very, very few, they can't do research with astronauts. And I think that's one of the most exciting changes, and your spaceflight really demonstrates that, is the accessibility to push the science forward. Because now we're seeing before, a couple people went to space every year. Now we're seeing people go to space almost every month. And those people are doing important research and gaining knowledge around the human body in space. And I wanted to really emphasize that for the students on this call is that the space industry is changing dramatically because of commercial spaceflight. And it really is, I think a lot of times people don't recognize the value, the scientific value that it's providing for humanity to go to the next phase of exploring the moon and creating an outpost and even going to Mars. So just my 2 cents that I wanted to echo what you were saying there.
And to double down on that, right? I mean, experiment is not you try something once, you see what happens. An experiment is you try something, you try it again and again and again. And when you have 10,000 experiments, then you have some evidence you can use to come up with an answer. And so, that's what we have to do is, I did one experiment. I'm hoping somebody after me will do two. The person after that will do 10. And then we'll get to the point where we have that. So we still are just scratching the surface. We're barely able to move the needle, but we have to take these first baby steps, right? And that's where we're at. And that's where looking again to the young minds here today, you're the ones that are going to take it to the next step. We just barely got scratched the surface, and now you guys have to go out there and figure out how to take it to the next level. And the world is waiting there for you to grab it and take it. So I wish I was in your seat, young and had the world ahead of me. So I'm jealous of everyone that's listening in, and I hope you feel the energy and know what the opportunity that is out there for you to go do the things that I might not be able to go do. Stand on the moon, right? And possibly even stand on Mars or something like that. So it's amazing opportunity out there, and you guys are just it's itching for you to just get up and go do it.
Amazing. And speaking of capturing some of that energy, we're going to circle back to the research component in a little bit and talk specifically about what you did up there. So thank you guys for outlining some of that as a bit of a teaser. But let's talk a little bit about the excitement around going to space, because I'm really curious. We do have some students that would love to go to space, and I know we have some students that love studying space, but maybe nervous about going to space or don't want to go themselves. And so I think it would be really interesting if you wouldn't mind walking us through the moment you found out that you were going to go to space, what some of those emotions were, how your friends and family reacted when you said you were going to space. Walk us through that reaction.
Well, listen, I know what you want me to say, but I'm going to tell you like how these things typically happen, right? And it sounds like, oh my God, like, if I tell you I tried to climb Everest, right? You think of the movie Cliffhanger and all this excitement, and you know, these things are long, arduous tasks, that take perseverance and persistence, and you just have to keep at it, right? And that's what it was. This was not a, hey, can I go to space and I get a call and everybody's partying. It is like, I literally spent 25 years building software companies to get the resources to do this, and then I signed up for it. And then it took me 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years on a wait list, talking to people, going through meetings and getting to the point where I actually went. So by the time you get there, you've been doing this for so long that, I don't want to burst the bubble that it's not this huge, exciting thing, but these type of journeys are all about long persistence. And if you want to accomplish this, don't expect it to be like an overnight success. There's very rarely overnight success. They usually are long, hard journeys that require discipline and require you to study and require you to invest your time, your energy, your life, things like that. So listen, it was an amazing experience. But it really was at the end of such a long journey that it was I thought it was more peaceful than exciting. Was like, okay, like I finally when they finally gave me a date. But even when they gave me a date, they're like, okay, we think it's this date, but there's a 50% chance that's totally going to change until we get 3 weeks beforehand. Right. So you're still very like build up. Maybe it's going to happen. Maybe it's not. But anything in life that's hard to do is like that, right? It requires persistence and it requires you to just have patience and endure through it, right? I mean, one of my heroes is Ernest Shackleton, right? And his family motto was through endurance we conquer, right? And it's not about the conquering, but it's about the endurance. It's about you have to persevere, and that's how you succeed in life. And that's how you get to the moon or to space or to the bottom of the ocean or anywhere you go. It's by being disciplined and working hard and grit and just sticking with it and just making things happen because you don't give up. So that is the key to doing this type of thing is perseverance, grit, and not giving up.
Great advice. And so it was a long and arduous journey, but all good things in life that are worth it are worth, enduring for. Let's fast forward past this arduous journey to space. Once they lit the engines, what was
Right.
going through your mind?
So at that point, you're a little bit of there's not a lot you could do. And actually, they give you it's interesting because they give you there are a series of words. If you say, I do not want to fly, that is the key words to say you can cancel the flight at any time, right? And so, they always have that you can get out of this, but nobody wants to get out of it. But by the time you're there in the seat, you are a passenger, right? You are sitting there and you just have to make sure you're just along, you're cargo on that flight. So but it was super exciting. It was like, okay, you're sitting there, it's probably 45 minutes before you take off, and you finally, the countdown starts to rumble, you start accelerating, you get pinned back to your seat. It's very exciting. Really, for me, probably my one of my favorite parts was we went through 3 layers of clouds. And to actually look over and see you're going 2,000 miles an hour straight up, and you're whizzing through these layers of cloud. That was very surreal, right? And that, like, for me, that's the science behind it, right? Is the fact that these engineers built this machine that could propel me at that speed vertically through this was mind blowing and just pure awesomeness. The other thing is, as you're going up, different things are happening, like the capsule releases from the rocket, and it's a loud boom when it happens, and you know it's going to
Mm.
happen, but it still startles. And believe me, for a split second when that boom goes off, it is startling. And then for a second after that, you're like, am I still alive? Right? So there definitely is a little bit of the just you're there and you're clenched and you're like, "Oh, I'm now, what my destiny is based on the engineering that went on over the past decades of work." So but you get up to the top, you unbuckle yourself, you float around, and then you get back in your seat and you come back down and you experience 5Gs on the way back down, and you're just experiencing this amazing engineering feat, and you just are so lucky to be part of it, right? That was my view, is that, I didn't do anything, right? I was just a passenger there, and I was the lucky one that was chosen to be able to be in that seat and be part of this journey. And that for me is a special treat.
Amazing. And we've talked a lot with the kids actually about the overview effect. And I wouldn't mind just bringing that up with you, this perspective shift that so many astronauts describe when they go to space for the first time. And you were the 717th person to go to space in human history. Um, did that hit you when you were above the Earth? What were sort of your thoughts as you were looking down on Earth?
Well, you do, and that's even more important, is when you go to space, it's and everybody that's gone before will tell you the microgravity is interesting, but at the end of the day, microgravity is like swimming in a pool, right? You're virtually experiencing microgravity when you're swimming in your pool at home, or if you're scuba diving or whatever. So, that's a very cool and neat experience, but really to look out the window and see the Earth and to see the curvature. And yes, the Earth is round. I promise you, I've seen it now. So, uh, but to see the curvature of the Earth and to see the planet and to see the countries and to see it as one world, to see this thin layer. We live in this thin, tiny covering that's so small around the Earth, and to understand the fragility of that and how the difference between humanity existing and not existing is this tiny little blue sliver that goes around the Earth. That is mind blowing, right? That is where you start to get this overview effect of realizing that you're putting ourselves in the perspective of the universe, right? The universe is so huge and we are this tiny little piece of it, and how lucky we are to be a part of that, and how special it is, and how we need to be better stewards of it. We need to look at our country and our world as not countries, but as one human race, right? So that's what the overview effect is to try to change that perspective. And the more people we get to space, the more people will understand this one humanity and this one united, and getting people to work together and to leave behind differences. That's what the overview effect is, right? But I like to continue to say, to give you another little example, right, is that you think about a globe at school, right, that's on the teacher's desk, right, that, maybe it's a foot and a half wide. Now, where humanity has gone to space, other than the people that, we've had a dozen, I don't know, 15 people that have been to the moon. Outside of those 15 people, even the other 717 or 700 people that have been to space, that is the equivalent of your finger leaving that Earth, right? The width of your finger. It's 1 centimeter off of that globe. That's what we consider going to space, right? So we are still babies in the cradle right now of reaching out and getting into this world. So this idea of going to Mars or getting more people to the moon, that takes us to a different factor and a different level. Right now, we are still in the cradle and we're trying to leave this cradle. We are babies trying desperately to climb out of the cradle, and we're not there, but we're just every time we climb up, we get a little further, and that's where we are. So, and again, the students on this call, you're right on that cusp, and it's so exciting to be a part of that, that you are going to leave the cradle, right? I'm still in that 1 centimeter from the globe. That's what my generation was. But you guys can actually get out of that and really go see other planets and see the moon and to go beyond. But I hope I just was able to leave a little bit of a path, create some of that path for you to help you get there.
We absolutely get the kids to envision what life on other planets is going to look like as part of our moon mission program. So anyone that's done the moon mission program on here, you guys are the Artemis generation. You guys are going to be seeing and hearing about this your whole lives. And we're going to jump into that a little bit later too. But was there anything during the flight? I know it's a relatively quick flight, but was there anything, a sound, a sight, a sensation, or a feeling that surprised you? That really kind of caught you off guard when you were in space?
Well, I mean, first of all, the thing that I did as I look back on the video, you have a video, a GoPro attached to your wrist while you do this, and I look back and I'm like, geez, I just kept saying wow over and over and over again. But the big piece was looking out, and if you look at the top middle picture there, that's probably the quintessential what it was looking down. It's probably higher than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be a high airplane ride, and you could see amazingly. But no, this actually was truly space, and you could look out and you see the magnitude of everything out there. You could actually see, and you couldn't see the complete Earth, right? We're not in an orbit, but you could see a good chunk of it. And to see the Earth with your eyes from that perspective is really special, and it really helps you again realize where our place is, how small our world really is, and how fragile. So that was the part that was for me the wowest piece was, not the acceleration, not the zero G, but to look at the Earth, to look at the planet and see what's down there. Right. And, I'm even going to go unprompted on, for me, space is a little bit of a side quest. My true passion is this exploration of the ocean, right? So a little bit of seeing from space was looking down at our oceans also, because while we're searching out in space, we also need to understand our own planet really, really well. And the vast majority of our planet remains unexplored, right? We have, again, while we've just barely scratched the surface of space, we've done very little on our planet also. 71% of the Earth is covered with oceans and water, and about 1% of that has been properly mapped, and probably 0.000, a bunch of zeros, one has been seen by human eyes, or even seen by any form of sonar and any level of detail other than a depth reading, right? So the ocean is a huge opportunity to explore and see what's there. Because I like to say the ocean is like going to another planet, right? The oxygen works differently down there. Your breathing works differently down there. Gravity works different down there. The creatures and the life that's there is so vastly different than what we know. So going and visiting the bottom of the ocean is just like going to another planet. So I truly believe we have to be incredible stewards of our oceans, because what's happening on our planet is much more affected by what's happening in the ocean than even on the land, right? And the fact that we've fished out 90% of the sharks, 90% of the whales, 90% of the cod, and every fish that you could imagine. We as humans have been horrible, and we fished out 90% of it, and it can heal. The earth is incredibly resilient and it can heal, but we have to allow it to heal. I mean, the problem is even today, we have a new industry that's cropping up, right? They send these giant factory trawlers to the Antarctic, and they're harvesting krill, right? Which is the very basis of everything on this planet. That is literally the bottom of the plankton, and krill are the two bases of it. and we are about to farm it the way we have farmed everything else till it's absolutely going to crumble our entire ecosystem. So, space is important, but we also need to look at our own planet and get our stuff in order here too.
Hmm. Well, let's get a little look at what that looked like for you and what sort of triggered. I know you were extremely passionate about the ocean and knew the importance of conserving the ocean ahead of going to space. But let's give everybody a little bit of a view of what that looked like for you as you went to space. And let me know if you can hear this. You should be able to.
I'm a little speechless right now. That was amazing. And once you're up there, it was higher than I could have imagined. Just the magnitude. Wow, you're staring down at the Earth. And to look down and see the curvature of the Earth in space, and to see the moon, and when the sun came around so bright, it's incredible. Holy cow.
Yeah, I get a little choked up even watching that. So
I know.
it was so exciting. A lot of it is kind of, fuzzy, right? Because you're in the moment. There's so much adrenaline, so much going on, that a lot of it, is hard to remember. And I'm like, I'm glad we recorded it because some of it's so fuzzy to me at this point. So
Yeah.
I want to jump
Yeah,
in
it's
here,
really
Aaron.
special. Sure.
The thing you were talking about before this video, I think fits in really well is students often ask us, why do we go to space when there's so many problems here on Earth? And I think you really spoke to that well, and I want to echo it again, is we go to space for the benefit of Earth, and that's Blue Origin's motto. But it's also the motto for the space industry, I think, in general, is the idea we're not pushing the boundaries of exploration for any other reason than to better understand and to help life here on Earth. And so I think your point about the importance of the oceans is really beautiful here for the students to hear and to see live that that is really your ethos and that's why you're doing it.
yeah, and it's interesting because I would suggest that the amount of resources that we put, like if you look at NASA versus NOAA, right? NASA is
Yeah.
exploring space, NOAA is exploring our ocean. We should probably put more resources into NOAA. And and I know that that's not the right thing to say on a space call, right? So I'm mixing it up a little bit here. Sorry everyone. But we should take care of our planet, and that doesn't mean we don't go to space. We still should push to go to space because there's benefits. Like designing and engineering this direction helps me go in this direction also. So it's important to do it, but we do need to figure out how to create, and a lot of this is about budget, honestly. And I know that's boring and that's, like numbers and all that, but it is about budgeting and to properly do exploration of our own planet also. But we have to go to space. We have to push ourselves because we're going to learn stuff going there. And it's just part of we are meant to wander. And that's where, if you look at humanity, right? Humanity really was born in kind of the African continent. And how did we get out? If we did not have the inborn desire to wander and to go see what's out there, we never would have left, right? But you saw humans left, and once they left, they spread like wildfire, right? And that is part of humanity, is this desire to wander, this desire to explore. And that is part of who we can't not do that, right? And so to think we're not going to go do everything we can to go see what's on the moon, right? That doesn't mean we give up on the Earth, but it absolutely means that we need to go see what else is out there and to learn more about that. The same way, if we would have just stayed in Africa, that would have limited us as humans, right? That, and by going out, we learn more, we experience more, we become more human, more conscious, all of that. So it really is important. As well, at the end of the day, going to space is much more visual, right? Going to the bottom of the ocean is about this dark, cold experience. It's just not as cool as going to space. So, and like people watching you go to the bottom of the ocean means they're on a ship, they put you in a metal ball and they drop you off the side, and 10 hours later you come up, right? It's just not as fun to watch. But, going to space, you got hundreds of people standing around and they watch you go up with fire coming out of the backside of you. That's way cooler to watch. So, so unfortunately, that is way more visual and appealing. But I still believe the oceans are something that I hope many people on this call get to understand the importance and realize we have exploration to do there too. There's plenty of exploration to go around for everybody. Don't worry.
Yeah. And speaking about, the way that we push the envelope a little bit with exploration, why we go to space, let's talk a little bit and open up a conversation around the research that you did as part of this space flight, because that was an exciting component. Josh and I and the team at Uplift were obviously very excited about it, as well as the team at Utah State University. They were the collaborators on the research project for your space flight. Do you mind chatting about that a little bit?
Yeah, so let me tell you the funny story first, right? So part of the experiment was they took electrodes and they put it on the back, the vestibular nerve here behind your ear, and they stimulate it with the electrodes, and they're just shocking it with a mild electrical current, and it's not painful, but it's certainly it's like touching a electric fence or touching, a 9-volt battery. It shocks you, right? And so, they did that and they did that to me for 5 minutes before and 5 minutes afterwards. I had more anxiety around that, fear of going in a rocket with, tens of thousands of pounds of thrusts and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't bother me. But the anxiety around getting shocked did. So believe me, the human mind is a very interesting organ that does not make sense, but that's where it started. So, but
So
yeah, I
why were
was.
we shocking you, Aaron? Why were we doing that?
Why are we shocking me? Probably just to see if I do it, right? But no, microgravity, as they send people to space, people are going to have problems with motion sickness, right? And they're trying to understand, how does microgravity and how does the space flight affect your balance? How does it affect your nausea level? How does it affect, the things that are going physiologically about your body? Right. And so it was very much an experiment to say, let's do a bunch of tests on you, including shocking you, before you left. And then right after I landed, they immediately took me off the flight, ran me over to the lab, and then reran the tests again. Right. So it really was all about, and it's one data point, right? It's just that first, like I said, we're scratching the surface here, right? I wish we had 1,000 data points, because then we could start reaching conclusions. One data point is just, let's figure out how we're going to do this, and we're the again, the analogy of the Oregon Trail, right, is that somebody had to be the first person to walk these trails and be knocking trees down and trying to create a path where it didn't exist before, right? And that's where we are right now, is that state. So this was just running tests and understanding protocols and just seeing how an experiment on what happens in microgravity and with the acceleration and all those combinations, things go together. But it was everything from, testing my reaction time with a stick, stimulating that vestibular nerve behind your ear and seeing if you wobble, because that wobbling, they put you on plates and they can tell how is your body reacting to the stimulation before and after microgravity and a rocket flight. And then, testing an accelerometer and I think it's an accelerometer, a little device in your mouth, again, to test how you're swaying and how your body and your nerves, your vestibular nerves, which is your balance, how does that react? So it really was just starting to dig into like the physiology of that, because to get to Mars, it's going to take a lot of understanding of our human physiology and how are we going to react to 0G, where our bone density starts really failing, or our muscle density, or what about the radiation that's affecting us, being in space for months, right? How is that? There's a lot of things we just don't know how the body reacts, and we need a lot of work to get there.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Aaron. There is research that shows that about 70% of people get motion sick when they go to space. And so, to your point, if we're going to go to Mars or these other planets, there's so many different fields of understanding the human body that are still completely unknown. And it's probably that's right now the engineer's biggest challenge for going to Mars is not the mechanical side, it's the human side. And that's where we really need to start pushing the envelope. And this, like you said, this research was essentially like a phase zero or a phase one of trying to understand the procedures and what type of data can be collected and how it looks so that then it can be used in future flights and really expand on the amount of people taking these data points and then starting to analyze it with some much higher accuracy from larger scale data point. So yeah, we really appreciated the work that you did to help make that possible.
You're welcome. But thank you guys for what you're doing for humanity. Yeah.
So
Like I
speaking
said,
of
I'm
for
just the test
humanity,
subject. I'm just the guy getting poked, but it's all the scientists and the engineers who are really the heroes here. So, again, we like, when you watch a movie, everybody raves about the person that's acting, right? But the actor is such a small part of what goes into a movie, right? But he gets all the glory and all the fame. And it's the same thing with space. The astronaut, the guy sitting in the seat gets all the fame and the glory, but it's really all those engineers and all those hundreds or thousands or even millions of hours of work and learning and generations of knowledge handed down. That's what's enabled us to do this. So that's really where I put the most value and the most respect into is those people that make it happen.
and following up on that, what gives you the most hope about the future of humanity as we're going out and exploring more? Did your trip to space give you a little bit more perspective on where we're going and why?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the actual flight itself is awesome, but that's not the point, right? Like if the point is that we've designed this engineering and this amazing technology that's going to take a million people after me into space. That's the point of this. So, my I am a what's the right term? An optimist, a hopeless optimist, right? Is I think that humanity, you look back 10 years and things are so much better than they were. And I know it's easy to get caught up in social media and believe, oh, things back in the good day or the good old day, or, things are going to hell, but that's not the case. Things are getting better and better. And so, I am this hopeless optimist who believes that I don't know whether it's going to be in 20 years or 100 years, but I know somewhere in that time period you are going to be able to get on a plane and or get on a rocket and go to the moon, right? And for me, that's amazing. And just every generation is going to be a little bit better. There's going to be more. There's going to be, amazing advancements, and every generation is then going to be jealous of the next one, having to see what the next step is, right? Like I wish I could peer into 200 years from now, into 100 years from now, into 500 years from now, and see what kind of amazing things we've done. Because, I don't believe in the dystopian views of, all these things. I believe in this, future that's out there that is wonderful.
Amazing. And so before we open everything up for questions for the students, if they only can remember one thing from this conversation, what would you like them to remember?
Is to go out. There's a lot of exploration to be done, right? We need people to go do it. And you students are the ones that can go do it. And so, you have the opportunity and you can make it happen. So go explore something. And maybe it's not space. We can't all go to space, but there is the ocean, or just go explore and take humanity to the next place. And you have the ability to do it. You can do it. You just have to work hard, you have to have the grit and the perseverance, and you're going to get there. So, but go do something amazing and cool and discover something new. And there's so many places you could do it. Pick one and go after it.
That's great advice for anybody of any age, Aaron. I love that. All right. Well, before we let Aaron go, we want to make sure that students that have questions can ask some questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat. And if you're feeling really brave, you can actually come up to the camera and unmute and ask Aaron your question. I can see we've got Cash here. He's the only student on camera. You're so brave, Cash. Any questions for Aaron? I know I was the quiz master today and did ask a lot of questions, but there is so much more.
Cash, are you on a boat? Oh, it looks like a boat. I was going to say I'm jealous of you.
That would be cool. Any questions? Josh, do you have any questions?
I think I got in
Andy.
my questions and thoughts. Yeah, I think
We were thorough.
Hi, Cash's mom.
Hi, Mandy.
Hi, I've been listening in the background.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for listening in.
Yeah, this has been just an amazing opportunity. I appreciate it. I did have a couple other kids that said they never got the link. So, well, Jordan looks like hopped on. Colin was wanting to hop on too, but he never got the link. So I'm so sorry. There were a few more that really wanted to be here, but is it recorded?
We did record it, yeah. So if they want to watch, they can do that.
Okay, great.
And we can chat about it in class next week too, Mandy.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Well, feel free to drop questions in, but I just want to take this time as we're kind of getting ready to say goodbye to just thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much for your stories and your experiences and your insights. Hearing what it's really like to kind of prepare for space flight in the commercial space age, to push your limits as an explorer, to not give up, to persevere, to do the hard things. And also what it's like to see Earth from above is incredibly inspiring. And we're really grateful that you took the time to sit down with our Starborn Academy community. And to all of our students and alumni that are here today or listening to this later, thank you for being here. Thank you for participating in our programs. Your curiosity and your energy throughout your classes has been amazing, and we really feed off you. So thank you guys for that. And I think conversations like this are a reminder of why exploration matters, why our planet matters, because the next big discoveries will come from people like you. It will come from you guys. So we hope today sparks some new ideas for you, maybe some new dreams or a new sense of what's possible. And thanks everyone again for being here. And happy Thanksgiving.
Like we got one question from Dr. Brown. So Dr. Brown asks, how was it to go to all these places in your life?
Why do you presume I'm not done yet? No, I'm hopefully just getting started. So there's many. Listen, I have a bad. I think it's a bad addiction I have, is that I always have this burning desire to go see these things and do these things. And I've been fortunate enough. And the thing is, once you kind of get into this network and this place, that the first one is hard. The next cool place to go to is easier. So, I just thrive on these new adventures. I mean, and I haven't even told Josh and Emily I have a tuk-tuk race across India next month. So that's my next adventure. And, the people around me are always shaking their head. It's like, what are you up to next? But it's just, it's a passion and what I want to do. And I hope the kids get inspired and they grow up with the same kind of, I want to go do these things and see these things and help push things ahead.